Integrigy is an applications and services firm that is exclusively focused on the Oracle e-business suite. We have a line of products, App Sentry and App Defend, that are purpose-built for the Oracle e-business suite as far as application auditing and scanning, as well as an application firewall. As far as services, we offer a full line of services with regard to security assessments, compliance, and security design. But as this is an educational webinar here, we'll keep this slide here brief. David?
Thank you, Mike. As stated earlier, my name is David Kilgallen. I work for CardConnect. CardConnect is a niche provider for tokenization and security and payment solutions in the major ERP realm. We support Oracle, SAP, as well as numerous other ERP applications. For the purposes of today's presentation, though, we're going to focus on our experiences, our offerings, and give you some advice as it relates to Oracle e-business. In particular, or in summary, at CardConnect, we figured out a way to shield your ERP system from card numbers by intercepting them with our proprietary API, placing tokens in your ERP application, and then facilitating interaction with the payment system. Phil?
Thank you, Mike and Dave. Our agenda for today will focus on 3 areas. First, Mike will speak to PCI requirements and the difficulties they impose on the Oracle e-business suite. And I'll follow that up by speaking about issues that you should consider when credit card data resides in your EBS. David will follow that up with an alternative solution for keeping credit card data out of your Oracle e-business suite, and therefore keeping your EBS out from under the PCI compliance requirements and issues. I'll now turn it over to Mike Miller.
Thank you again, Phil. So what we'll, as Phil was saying here, we're first going to go through and touch on PCI requirements within the context of the Oracle e-business suite. So when thinking about PCI, PCI covers the entire Oracle e-business suite. So I'll say not only from the first day, but every day thereafter, and also from the network on up through the operating system, the servers, into the database, into the application. It also covers production, test, and development. If you have one credit card number, regardless of size or transaction volume, you need to abide by PCI. So what we've done here is, again, to make the assumption that most people in attendance here are using the Oracle e-business suite and have PCI compliance needs and or considering it. What we've done here is laid out the 12 sections of PCI DSS on the left there, and we have on the right laid out those layers of technology as far as, in particular, the database in the application itself. We're going to spend a little bit of time going into sections 3, 6, and 10, specifically with regard to the protection of cardholder data here today. So this slide here, similar to the prior, we have the 12 sections of PCI. And what we've done is put down as far on the right here, as far as the result of our consulting engagements and services, the level of effort for compliance. If somebody has a live mic, could you please put yourself on mute? Thank you. So as I was saying, we have listed out here the 12 sections of PCI and laid out is in particularly the effort required to achieve PCI compliance. So as far as requirement number 3 there, as far for the protection of stored cardholder data, you can see that that is a high or the most difficult to achieve. We're going to be getting into that because that's specifically the topic of today's conversation here between encryption and tokenization. Also, please note Section 6 and Section 10. Section 6 really has to do with the secure configuration of the e-business suite. This would include patching This would include making sure that you have if you're running with a DMZ, that you have the application firewall properly configured and in place. Section 10 there, the difficulty here is with regard to setting up the application logging and auditing and the daily log review. So we're going to touch on these topics in the next few slides here as well. Key point here is that out of the box, the Oracle E-Business Suite is not PCI compliant. The functionality provided with Release 12 that is a major improvement as far as PCI functionality, it is disabled by default. You need to take the steps to enable it, and those steps are correspondingly as far as the levels of difficulties we laid out there in the prior slide there. Some are easier than others. Bottom line here is that PCI compliance is not just a one-time setup. So it is very much a task and a responsibility that you need to build throughout your program and your support and your IT governance. To that point, requirement 6 here. Those of you running the Oracle E-Business Suite and know the challenges of keeping current with your security patches, PCI places some very heavy requirements on you, or difficult to meet, at least as far as maintaining current patch levels. There's some very specific language with that calls out application security patches being applied within 30 days of release. Requirement 8, with regard to assigning unique IDs to each person with access. PCI has some very strict requirements with regard to no generic accounts. It also calls for every 90 days to review user accounts for those users who have not logged in and are potentially stale and no longer with the company, or no longer have an appropriate business need to have access, and that the passwords are changing. These are some of the, if you think about how the Oracle E-Business Suite works, as far as some of these profile options that govern the expiry and password complexity of user accounts, this is what we're talking about as far as it's not just a one-time setup. You need to think about every 90 days going through a process and auditing to make sure that those settings are still what they should be, and that you can produce the evidence for auditors. Section 10, auditing. The out-of-the-box log and auditing functionality of the Oracle E-Business Suite is minimal. To meet PCI, you need to set up additional auditing. Moreover, you need to have a process in place that you can provide attestation to auditors that you are reviewing those logs on a daily basis. And not just for the Oracle E-Business Suite, but you need to think about the database, the network, and the operating system. So it's the entire technology stack that if you have a credit card number in it, you need to think about the security and meeting PCI of the entire stack. Last but not least, annual penetration test, quarterly vulnerability scans, and deploying file integrity monitoring. That last item there is deploying file integrity monitoring, tools such as Tripwire. If you are a larger shop, you might already have those in place. If you're not, that very well might be one of the barriers that you have the hardest time meeting or hurdling as far as achieving your PCI compliance. So just in summary for this section here, PCI out of the box for the Oracle E-Business Suite, the functionality is not enabled. You need to take steps to enable it. And after you have enabled it, you need to put in place a program to maintain your PCI compliance for every day thereafter. So now let's talk a little bit about the standard functionality that Oracle does offer. And I'm going to speak to Oracle Release 12. So Release 12 consolidated all of the payment activity into a single module called Oracle Payments. This includes the storing and processing of credit cards. Specifically, what Oracle is doing here is they have consolidated all of what they're referring to as external accounts. So external accounts versus internal accounts. External accounts are those accounts that are owned by your customers or your vendors. So be they credit cards, be they bank account numbers. Internal accounts would be those bank accounts you use to run your organization, your checking accounts, and we'll touch on this in a moment, but corporate cards. Though corporate cards could be, actually I'll just talk about it now. Though corporate cards are they are issued by Visa and MasterCard, if you look at the language in your agreements, corporate cards are not covered by PCI. So this is a common question that we get. People come to us and say, hey, look, we have credit card numbers in the Oracle E-Business Suite, and it comes out that they're just corporate cards for employees. Though PCI and your individual bank will strongly encourage you to appropriately protect those corporate cards, they are not under the umbrella of PCI. That said, the functionality that Oracle offers within payments for the encryption and masking and protection of card data does cover corporate cards. So let's move on a little bit. The secure payment repository is a part of the new payments module, and it is in that secure payments repository where Oracle is offering the functionality for credit card encryption and credit card masking to meet those requirements in Section 3 of PCI. This is the functionality that's disabled by default, and we're going to touch on a little bit on how that works. So we have the secure payment repository. This is a logical diagram of the e-business suite, and the modules in blue there, we have in pink the corresponding transaction tables, and in the light green you'll see those are the secure, the actual tables within the secure payments repository. So the three-step process to enable credit card encryption within the Oracle E-Business Suite is as follows. First, you need to create an Oracle payment wallet. So payment wallets are standard Oracle wallets. The recommendation that Integrigy makes is that you have a dedicated wallet for credit card encryption. You can have a wallet supporting SSL. If you're using advanced security option and are with a TDE, you could also have a second wallet for that. Our recommendation is that you have a wallet for each and do not attempt to consolidate. Once you have created the wallet, you need to then go into the Oracle E-Business Suite and set the configuration options within the payment setup. Won't go into that in too much detail, but Oracle has the concept of full encryption or partial encryption. The full encryption is the encryption of the primary account number as well as the cardholder name and expiration, though you do have the option to only encrypt the card number itself, and that is what Oracle refers to as partial encryption or just encryption of the supplemental data. The encryption itself that Oracle is using is actually a chained encryption approach where Oracle is using the triple DES encryption algorithm, and it actually exceeds the requirements laid out by PCI by using a 156-bit key. The PCI requirement is only for a double length. So that said, once you go through, create the wallet, and the encryption key that is being used is actually stored in the wallet. The wallet is actually stored in the wallet file outside the database in the operating system. That has some ramifications for cloning. We'll get to that in a moment. But the configuration options, you flip those switches, and then what you need to do is you need to encrypt any existing cardholder data. This is a little trickier than it sounds. There's some concurrent programs that are run, and you need to make sure that you run those in the correct order. There is a concurrent request set. These concurrent programs also can unencrypt, and one of our recommendations is to, once you set up the encryption, you want to be very carefully monitor the execution of these programs, not only in production but also in non-production. A couple of things to keep in mind about test and development instances. If you have a live credit card number in production and then you take a copy of production to create a test or development instance, PCI requirements 643 and 35 very clearly state that you cannot have live cardholder data in test or development. So when you create those non-prod instances, you need to do a few things. Not only do you need to remove, purge, or scramble the production data, but you also need to protect the encryption keys. So that requires you to go in and rotate the payment wallet, and not only just rotate it, but then PCI is also calling that you securely wipe those wallet files out of the operating system. So these would need to be added to your post-clone steps. If you are using a hosting or a cloud provider, you would need to make sure that they have the capabilities to do this as well. Purging cardholder data. So again, PCI has very stringent requirements, not just on day one, but more so on every day thereafter. Requirement 3.1 that we commonly counsel people with regard to is that PCI requires that you only keep cardholder data in your system for as minimal amount of time as necessary. So that might be 6 months, that might be 6 weeks, whatever is the appropriate time for any reconciliation and or returns. There is quite clearly in 3.1 a quarterly, some language in around a quarterly purge process. The bottom line here is that Oracle does not offer a single universal cardholder purge solution. Each of the individual modules that are using the secure payment repository need to be consulted. Some of those have a solution, most don't. If you do some research, you will quickly find that there are many reported bugs and enhancement requests for Oracle to help people with this. Until such time, though, you need to think through what your requirements are and to put in place a solution for purging or obfuscation of cardholder data on a cardholder basis. Where else might cardholder data exist? So we commonly find when we first start working with the customer is that there are tables created by DBAs or developers, backups, prior to data fixes, prior to just through the development process and or upgrades. So not just interface tables, maintenance tables, custom tables. We also need to think through log files for the database, log files, let's say even for Apache. We have a set of utilities that work through using or scan the database using a set of regular expressions. Commonly we will find credit card numbers that just to fit on one page here. We wanted to give a sampling of that here. So this goes back to even if you flip the switch and go through the credit card encryption, go through the steps, run the concurrent programs, you still need to go through and scan and make sure that the deck is clear, so to speak, as far as that you have purged or at least identified everywhere where cardholder data might exist. So in summary here, out of the box, the Oracle eBusiness Suite does offer functionality for the encryption of card data. However, it is turned off. You need to enable it. When you go through those steps, you need to think through requirements, not just for production, but the securing of your non-production environments, and you need to think through your entire technology stack from the network on up through the server, into the database, into the application space. Encryption is only one requirement. However, encryption is not the only means of securing cardholder data. PCI is very clear that tokenization is an alternative for protection of cardholder data. And with that, David.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Phil, if you could switch the display to my screen. Okay, everyone can see properly, I hope. So Mike did an excellent job at laying out the storyline behind implementing EBS, changing default passwords, securing your installation in total, top to bottom. And Mike, I know we reviewed this deck a couple times, but I don't think I shared with you before that some of the slides that you incorporated I used probably 2 or 3 years ago when I started my learning curve into 11i and R12. So some of them kind of brought up some memories for me. So the last topic you touched upon was that encryption is one of the options, and it certainly is a strong option. However, it's not the only option you have. And one easy way, at least in thought, one easy way to maintain compliance and to reduce your risk and your exposure and the cost associated with your PCI program is to introduce the idea of tokenization, and that's what I'd like to explore in the next several slides. So tokenization, quite simply, gives you an option of substituting replacement values for your cardholder data in Oracle eBusiness. It's a very straightforward process. You have a couple things to consider when you're thinking about tokenization. One is how it fits into your workflow, into your application stack, and into your processes in general. But let's talk about why you should take the time to evaluate your needs for tokenization. Well, first of all, it removes sensitive data from your EBS entirely. And in short, how I started the conversation was, if you're not storing card data, if you're storing tokens instead of credit card numbers, then you've greatly reduced the effort, the cost, and the risk associated with remaining compliant and supporting your e-business platform. Here's a very straightforward example of tokenization. On the left in the orange block is a typical credit card number. The first 2 digits are usually indicative of the card brand. In this case, 12 is a fictitious brand. And some of this leverages the CardConnect model, and I can speak to that the best, so I am going to use that as an example. The way that we structure our tokens is that all tokens begin with a 9, as you can see in the upper right-hand corner of the slide deck. The first 2 positions from the original card number are preserved, and the last 4 digits from the original card number are preserved as well. And that makes it easily identifiable when you're interacting with the customer. That you might say, Mr. Smith, your Visa card that ends in 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. Now, tokenization is different from encryption, and as a provider of a service in this industry, card numbers that are presented through our API or through our interfaces that deal with Oracle eBusiness, we take the card number, insert that into our vault, into a table. We generate a random token that is forever assigned to that card number and return that to the calling location. When the card number is stored in our database, it's encrypted. So in essence, we've substituted the critical data on your side with the token and taken on the burden of storing tokens as they relate to the credit card data. And there's a couple challenges here, right? If you're a large level 1, level 2 provider, you're processing more than 6 million transactions per year. And if you've been in business for a couple years, you can understand that your historical volume is going to be quite high. You're talking multiples of tens of millions of dollars. So you have to give consideration to your going forward tokenization, but you must also consider the tokenization of your historical payment data. And there are tools. They're available in the CardConnect suite, but they're available with other options as well to look at all the critical places where credit card information is stored, whether you're dealing with Oracle 11i, where it can be kind of spread out, or R12, where it's a little bit more consolidated. Go through and historically pull out that information, tokenize it through a vault or an engine similar to the CardConnect engine, and then restore that information back into Oracle eBusiness so that, it further protects your historical data as well as your ongoing transactions, as illustrated by the last line, to implement tokenization for all new and ongoing transactions. Different things to consider when you're evaluating token providers too is the use of single-use and multi-use tokens, and I think I have a slide for that next, so I'll touch on that in a minute. You also need to consider the various channels through which you do business. In the typical Oracle eBusiness environment, you're talking about Oracle Forms. In 11i, it uses JInitiator. In R12, the JRE, the standard JRE, the thick client that runs on your PC. And when you're dealing with that environment, you don't necessarily want to enter credit card information directly into a form or a self-service page, because just by virtue of the very post of that transaction, now Oracle eBusiness is transmitting, processing, or storing that information. And again, the whole goal with PCI and the use of tokenization is that you intercept that value before. So if you're using Forms, if you're using iStore or some other web integration, we have customers that are using Salesforce and using some of our components, whether it's an application that runs on your desktop, or it's an AJAX call, or it's some other API that you can leverage. You need to identify all the entry points and all the channels through which you do business, even card present transaction, which is gaining more and more visibility with the breaches in the last 6-8 months. Grab that information, encrypt it at its entry point, or tokenize it at its entry point, store it in a vault off-site, and then store the token only locally in your ERP application. So whether you're doing point of sale, mobile, e-commerce, etc. Once you've identified your channels and you've got a way to tokenize the information coming in, one of the important things, and Mike mentioned this earlier, is that regardless of whatever the source module is, order management, AR, service contracts, lease management, anything in Oracle eBusiness that accepts and processes these credit card numbers will now be accepting tokens. On the back side, on the banking side, on the authorization and funds capture side, only Oracle Payments. In 11i it was iPayments. In R12 it's Oracle Payments. Only Oracle Payments interacts with the gateway. So the note here, or the call out specifically to selecting a provider for tokenization and gateway services that integrate easily into the Oracle paradigm, into that iPayments or Oracle Payments environment that speaks the same language as Oracle, is key, because that will reduce the integration, the upfront effort, and the cost associated with it. So this is a somewhat specific slide for CardConnect, and it's going to sound a little bit like a sales pitch, but we'll try to keep it to a minimum. The way that the way the CardConnect interacts with the Oracle environment is that we have a set of APIs, whether it's AJAX from a website, a desktop tokenizer, which is an applet that runs on your PC, which can be used outside of the Forms environment, where you enter the credit card number into the desktop tokenizer. It generates a form, communicates in real time with our vault, generates a token, returns that token to your paste buffer, and you put it into Oracle Forms. Whether you're using card present, a mobile device, we've got just a plethora of options to consider that will insulate your Oracle eBusiness from credit card numbers on the front side, and then allow, since the CardConnect solution, the CardConnect gateway is written to the Oracle iPayments EC application servlet spec, the integration effort consists of 15 minutes or so. I hope my boss isn't on the line, but it's a very quick and easy integration. We can get demo systems up and running in about 15 minutes to a half an hour. And it makes use of what are called irreversible tokens, or one-way tokens, and they're persistent or sticky or smart, I've heard some of our partners call them, in that they're reusable. They are multi-use tokens, and that's particularly relevant in an environment where you're doing a recurring billing. Maybe it's a subscription, something that is a monthly invoicing where you want to reuse the same card number over and over again. In essence, you use the same tokens, which will always and forevermore equate to the same card number. Just a slant CardConnect solution in particular. So you have options too when it comes to hosting. It's one thing to protect your Oracle e-business and take the credit card numbers out and replace them with tokens. But you should get some consideration if you want to store that, store the vault for that on your premise, or if you want to host it in the cloud. There are pros and cons. If you're going to store it locally, you're going to have a premise installation and store the vault somewhere on your network. Your organization will still be within scope for PCI, as it will always be, even with the use of tokens. It's just the level of compliance that changes, maybe from a SAC D, a self-assessment questionnaire D, down to an A or a B. If you keep your vault locally or on-premise, you still have to make sure that the portions of PCI that relate to the levels of the architecture lower than the application stack, like networking, physical access, key generation, logging and monitoring, everything that has to do with where that information is stored, you still have to remain compliant. There are some companies that feel like it's their data, they feel most safe with it on their side of the firewall, and there are others that, you know, if you have a trusted provider like Integrigy, where they can identify where your card numbers, or CardConnect, where they can help you, and you can turn over your card numbers to them, then your scope is greatly reduced, the risk is greatly reduced, and the cost is greatly reduced. In essence, then, in a hosted provider, we take on the responsibility for securing your data, network, firewall, physical, and encryption. One other aspect to consider when determining a partner or your options for going into the PCI world in e-business, or selecting a gateway or a tokenization provider, is some of the added features that are available. Not a necessity, but certainly can make or break a deal. At one time, in a previous life, I worked for Oracle, and one of our mantras was we never modified Oracle delivered code. That's one of the things that we live by here at CardConnect as well. So we're able to implement the solution without any modifications to Oracle e-business. And some of those solutions include things like processing level 2, level 3, auth, voids, reconciliation, account updater. These are just extra features that maybe don't necessarily drive down your PCI compliance program, but help facilitate your daily process, alleviate work burdens, reduce costs, free resources up to do other value-added things. So, in particular, automatic reconciliation, we call it card deposit, brings back deposit information back from your processor a day or two after your funds capture call, and then automatically matches it to open receipts in AR, thereby closing them, uses standard interfaces, the cash management tables, etc., and then stages journal entries so you can update your GL for cash and fees. Again, just an add-on. It's good to partner with a provider that has a full complement of tools for you. Now, I just want to touch on some of the costs, and these costs they're relative to any organization. Obviously, they're related to the level of the merchant, but you know, the attendees that are listening today, you understand the headcount that's involved in remaining PCI compliant, whether that's one person, two persons, or an entire department. You know the cost and the effort that you went through to become PCI compliant, or that you're going through right now in an attempt to become compliant. On average, and the source for the information is listed at the bottom, on average, level 1 merchants will spend upwards of $250,000 in the initial scope of their program, and spend almost $1 million becoming compliant. That's a lot of transactions, and that's a lot of money. And then on an ongoing basis, depending upon which questionnaires and what your compliance requirements are, you could easily spend $200,000 or more with your security assessments, pen tests, QSAs, audits, etc. And obviously the levels vary by merchant, but take a moment and just picture where you are on this graph, and the headcount, the salaries, the hardware, the software, your support costs, your maintenance costs, etc. And you can see that PCI, besides the challenges for difficulty and risk, also involve quite a big chunk of money. And the money on the last slide is the good news. That's if you're compliant. And that doesn't even touch upon what happens if there's an actual breach. And obviously breaches have been in the news quite often, or with the Target breach and the other news about hacker activity. If something does happen and you're found to be non-compliant, the card brands have it within their power to fine you, and those fines could range from nominal amounts to $25,000 per month that you are non-compliant. Merchants are liable, and when you sign up for PCI and when you sign up for card processing, it's the merchant that's really puts their skin in the game. Merchants are liable for breaches, and the fines can be huge. The source again is referenced at the bottom, but on an estimate of about $100 to $200 per compromised record. I don't even want to think about the Target breach and how much the resulting fines could be. So by introducing by introducing tokenization, now you've taken your compliance scope down. We talked a lot about the effort and the risk, and in the last slide, the cost. Now we're going to see how a typical scenario would go from a SAC-D, and a self-assessment questionnaire, SAQ, SAC-D, is, at least the 2.0 version, was 60 pages long, about 275 questions. I have printed out the SAC-D for PCI 3.0. It's over 300 questions now. The advantage of tokenization is now you've given away the risk. You've given away the target for hackers. You've given away the card data to a partner, or it's stored in a vault, and you've reduced your compliance effort from potentially a SAC-D down to a SAC-A or SAC-B. SAC-A and SAC-B, by comparison, are about 6 pages, maybe 20 questions, as opposed to the before situation, which is more than several hundred questions. In addition, you're cutting your compliance cost from a head count and a hardware and infrastructure standpoint, and the dollar amounts, again, you have to calculate in your head that versus the benefit of storing credit cards or sending them to an off-premise vault. So this slide touches briefly on a standard integration and what you should be envisioning under Oracle eBusiness before, and what the benefits are afterwards. So in the before situation, obviously you're storing your processing card data. You're storing it in your Oracle eBusiness. It's flowing through your firewalls, your gateways. It's being logged. There's potential for internal or inside job type hacking, as well as external. The card data, you've encrypted it in Oracle, which is great, but it's not an end-all or be-all. It's still not completely safe. Remember, the keys are also stored on that same Oracle eBusiness server, although outside and in the wallet, it is possible to view encrypted data without having the master key. And if anybody wants a little more information about that, they can contact me outside of this seminar. Inherently, the gateway model does not process level 2 and level 3 data, and level 2 and level 3 is of particular interest if you're doing a lot of purchase card or business-to-business transactions and you have an eye fixed on your interchange rates. Sending level 2, level 3, minimizing the time between authorization and capture, doing an auth void instead of letting an authorization expire. These are all little tricks of the trade where you can go in and you can optimize your interchange and realize real benefits just by how you're interacting with the payment gateway. And then bank deposit information is not reported into Oracle, and that's more of a benefit or an add-on. But conversely, or the after image, is that you've reduced the storage of card data and you've greatly reduced the cost, the risk, and the effort. And that kind of summarizes the right-hand side. If you elect to take advantage of any of those extra add-ons, then you've also increased your organizational efficiency. So, Phil, if you want to summarize.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, to summarize the webinar today, Mike Miller started off the session speaking about how the Oracle eBusiness Suite does not meet the requirements set by PCI. Then mapped out the 12 PCI requirements and showed where Oracle EBS and database fell short. Mike then followed up with some of the issues you must consider if you're using or plan to use credit card in your EBS, including the finding and purging of existing credit card and other sensitive data. David then followed up by continuing speaking about the Oracle EBS about taking the Oracle EBS out of the PCI compliance picture through the use of tokenization and encryption. He spoke about how tokenization works and some of the cost benefits you might expect. And by the way, both Dave and Mike's contact information will be displayed in just a moment. But let's get to the questions now. All right, first question we have here is tokenization. How long is the typical integration process for tokenization? Dave, Mike?
I'll take that one. That is obviously going to depend upon the volume of your historical data. Going on our personal experience, our engine supports, from the tokenization aspect, 3,600 tokenization requests per minute. So if you can picture in your mind the volume of card data that you have, historical card data, and divide that by 36 and then scale up from minutes to hours or days, I can tell you that we have successfully tokenized approximately 4 million cards per hour. So if you got something in the order of 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, it's something that's easily accomplishable in less than a day.
All right, thank you. Now let's talk about performance. Does the Oracle credit card encryption cause any performance problems? Mike, that sounds like you.
Sure. I'll give a short answer and would very much welcome a, if necessary, conversation afterwards, if that is so necessary. The short answer is no. We have not seen significant performance on an ongoing transaction go-forward basis. Oracle does offer the ability to batch encrypt, such that one of the encryption options you have is automatic or delayed. So if you were concerned about encryption, you could potentially run a batch job at night to encrypt card data. However, it is Integrigy's strong advice not to use that functionality. You would never want card data unencrypted. So again, happy to take a longer conversation if that's so necessary, but if you're doing active automatic encryption, the answer is no.
Thank you, Mike. The next one looks like we're still on performance here. Can tokenization cause any performance problems with the Oracle EBS? Dave?
None that I've noticed, and none that our customers have encountered. In essence, our tokens, the way they're structured, they're 16 characters long. They begin with a 9 instead of your traditional 3, 4, 5, or 6. They're treated exactly like card numbers in Oracle EBS, and there's really no difference. The only point where there may be a delay is when Oracle eBusiness is interacting with the payment gateway, but our tests to date have shown less than a 50 millisecond delay in the messaging out to your gateway.
Thank you, Dave. The next one, I think I can answer this one myself, actually. Corporate cards, do they need to be PCI compliant?
So the answer, you need to read through your corporate agreements yourself through the fine print. Our Integrigy's experience, the answer is no. They are strongly encouraged to be appropriately protected. And here's where the Oracle documentation is not always consistent. Some of the places you will see where card data is not supported, corporate cards are not supported, and other places, yes. I actually pulled the code at the beginning of the year and walked through at a very, very low level, and can emphatically say that yes, if you go through and pull the levers for credit card encryption, corporate cards will be included. However, that is optional.
Thank you. Next question. Do we have any cheat sheets on validating e-business suite within compliance of PCI DSS 3.0, specifically technical?
Well, probably both David and I could answer that to some degree. I'm happy to point to various white papers and material we have on our website. That's probably where I would start. David?
Actually, I would probably start on your website as well.
Gotcha. Okay.
The information Integrigy has provided in the past has been very helpful. Like I said, I printed out my PCI 3.0. I'm in the process of making a cheat sheet. I guess once we formalize it, we can share it and post it on your website.
Sounds good. And the next one, what types of payment acceptance hardware/software can be used with tokenization?
Mike, I'll take that one. There are many options. They fall into, I would say, 3 categories. One is simple PAN entry, and this is speaking from a hardware perspective. Simple PAN entry, where you key in a piece of hardware, you key in the credit card number. So this would be a typical call center representative area. You key in the card number. That PAN device interacts with a vault similar to the CardConnect vault, tokenizes it, returns the token to the calling location, and in your EBS or whatever ERP application you're using, you paste in the token. So you take a 41 something something number, and it turns it into 941 something something. The number is stored in the vault. The token goes into EBS. There are a couple other things, right? There's also mobile. And there's typical card present or retail transactions. I can't speak for the other providers, but I know at CardConnect, the key that's used in the vault is a public key, has a public key, private key combination. The private key is stored in the vault. The public key can be injected into several of the Ingenico, Magtech, or IDTech devices. We call them the wedge devices, the small ones that plug into the audio jacks, your standard kind that you see at Wawa and Home Depot, etc. All of them can be keyed in such a way to interact with a proprietary gateway or a vault like ours. As far as software, again, speaking from our experience, we have an AJAX call, the desktop tokenizer, and then I guess at the gateway level, Oracle iPayments, as well as the SAP interface for payment processing, are both supported by the CardConnect gateway.
Okay, next one. If we encrypt our card numbers, what do you recommend as alternatives other than tokenization if our distribution bank requires a full 16 digits in our payment file?
So, Mike, you want that one or you want me?
Yeah, well, if you have a thought, why don't you take it first?
I just want to make sure I understand the question properly. So you've got all your credit card numbers in the IBY credit card table. It's encrypted. You've applied the encryption patches. You've set up the wallet, and your data is encrypted. You can still get that data back. If you're concerned that you don't have the original card number anymore, there are ways to get that information back out of the database, whether it's if you have the system, the master key as EBS requires, or access. There is another slightly different way that you can get it out. As long as you can return those original card numbers to clear text, they can be tokenized, and then you can update the credit card table with the token values instead of encrypted values.
So I could, if understanding the question there. So David, yes, there are the concurrent programs that encrypt, and there's also reciprocal decrypt concurrent programs. These are one of the things that we strongly suggest you monitor for in production, as well as the non-production instances. So I go so far as to say that you should probably disable the decrypt concurrent programs and only enable them as necessary. So if somebody has card numbers and they want to convert over to tokenization, they would simply go in, enable those concurrent programs if they had so deactivated them, run them, and decrypt all the card data.
Next question. In the tokenization example, is it necessary to store the card data at all?
It's not on the Oracle business side, and if that didn't come through clearly in the slide, I apologize. We store the original card data in its encrypted form in a vault on our side, which is a row in the database, which is pointed to by the token, and it's the token that's returned to Oracle eBusiness. So, if you were to select a token provider like CardConnect and you put in a bunch of orders with fictitious credit cards in your test system and then looked at the IBY credit card table, you would see all tokens.
Next question. How would the card details be sent to bank for corporate cards or banks to apply the payments against the appropriate cards?
How would the, okay. Maybe this revolves around the gateway. Again, I hope I understand the question properly. At the time that the authorization call is made and the funds capture call is made after invoicing, both of those are touch points where Oracle e-business through the through Oracle Payments module interacts with the payment gateway. The gateway resides in our hosted environment, as does the vault. So the gateway is going to listen for messages that comes from Oracle Payments. It receives those calls and have a structure, a message, and a format. In that message is a token. Our gateway knows in real time to crack that message open, take the token out, send it to the vault, and exchange the token for the original card number, inserts it back into the message, and then forwards it on to the bank. Again, all with about a 50 millisecond delay. So where we intercept on the front side, we reintroduce on the back side at the gateway, and then send the messages off to the banking system. The banking system never sees a credit card number that starts with a 9.
Next question. How would the card administrator's expense be able to see the full card information within Oracle?
I can take that. So there are profile options as well as menu grants that you can configure certain responsibilities to see the full card data. Those obviously need to be carefully administered and as far as monitored as far as who has access to those.
But we don't know whether the question is coming from whether it's been tokenized or not. Is there a different answer?
I gave the answer I gave the answer for the Oracle e-business suite, right? David will give it for tokenization.
Sure. You have two options, two general options. One is gateways like CardConnect or our product in particular offer the ability for a limited number, and I stress that, a limited number of individuals to access a UI that makes the card number visible again. We discourage that use. You can also use a well-defined set of APIs to make tokenization and detokenization calls from whatever host environment that you decide is appropriate. Keep in mind that if you return a card number into a calling environment like back into Oracle e-business, you're reintroducing it into PCI Scope.